how do I use this guide? This guide that I'm making you, I'm going to cover everything in the heart of algebra portion on the SAT, but how are you actually going to utilize all of this information? So basically use this as an introduction. Use this as a way to introduce yourself to all the concepts that are on the heart of algebra portion, but you have to support your practice by actually doing the work. Or I'm just introducing you to all the concepts and running through like maybe a difficult problem, but it's up to you to really practice these concepts because that's the only way you learn. You don't learn by a person in detail teaching you everything. You learn by the practice. The homework is where you really get the review. It's not the lesson. So keep that in mind as like a way to interpret all of these full guide videos that I'm going to make. Right. So a 1600 score fully understands these concepts, has read them all before. At one point, they might have not known these concepts, or they might have learned them in school, but only loosely. But they focused on what was exactly tested on the SAT, learned everything, did a bunch of practice problems for that, and that's how they got the score that they wanted. So hi, I'm Karthik. This is everything you need to know for Heart of Algebra. All right. So linear expressions. This is like the first main concept and arguably the base for everything in algebra. So basically you're like your 3 equals x or like 6 equals 2x, right? Your simple algebraic equations where you first introduce letters into math. And these can have 1 or 2 variables, right? Know how to solve them for 2 variables. If they give you 2 equations, that's called a system of equations. Now you need to know how to solve those, and you need to know how to graph linear expressions. You need to know what they equal. You need to know like y equals x and what slope is, what intercepts are. You need to know how to graphically express these or like transform the equations, like move it up or move it to the side or change the slope. You need to understand all of that. And you need to understand how to implement all of these in word problems. Now, my take on word problems is that if you just have a big enough grasp on all these concepts itself, like just fully understand every single small aspect, the word problem is going to come easy, right? The word problems are only like slightly more difficult than other problems is because they don't explicitly tell you what changes you have to make. You have to read them and know what the changes are from the words itself. And we're not used to seeing that a lot in math. Only in like higher level maths do we really see that concept like be more prevalent. So with word problems, it's just a mastery of the original concepts and then knowing how that translates to what they're asking you. Like if I ask you to shift something up, that means like +2 to the entire like y-intercept, right? And do you know that? And you just have to know that skill and then know how it connects to the language. Now, here's an example. Pause to read it. But basically, this equation here, I got this from Khan Academy, but like the truck is traveling at 30 miles. So we associate miles with the large truck at 30 with A, and we associate 10 with B, right? But it's in minutes, and we're given in miles per hour. So first, let's convert to miles per minute. And how we do that is we take miles an hour, and then we convert that hour format into 60 minutes. So by dividing it by 60 minutes, we're going to get miles a minute, right? So if I take 1 mile divided by an hour and then divide that by minutes, we get the miles a minute, right? So once I get mile a minute, right, how many I'm going per minute, then I can multiply that by the unit of time, right? And the unit of time is A or B, right? So we get the unit of time, and then from the unit of time, if we multiply out miles per minute by the number of minutes, we just get the total miles, right? So if we know that the total length of time is A plus B, we know that the series of A's at the large truck speed and the amount of time for B at the small truck speed is going to equal the total duration if my n thing is just miles. So we note that 30 over 60 times A, right, which is the miles an hour divided by how many minutes is in an hour. And then we multiply that by, or we add that to the same thing for the speed of B in minutes, miles a minute, and we multiply by the total number of minutes, we'll get the total number of miles plus miles. And what is that? We know that the total destination is 24. So there's your answer. Okay, so inequalities. Again, this is inequalities. If you understand linear expressions, you're going to understand inequalities. And the reason that is because like the only difference in inequalities is the expressions instead of the equal sign, like the greater than, equal to, less than, equal to. If you understand what those mean, inequalities are just going to come to you because you know the concept of how to solve all of these already. You know, like what the symbols are and what they mean and how that interacts with the equation. So a full mastery of linear expressions is going to get you a full mastery of inequalities because it's the same thing, right? You get single multiple variables. You're going to need to know how to graph them, how which side of the graph is the shaded portion, which means like which side is the points actually referencing, because it's an inequality. It's no longer just a strict answer. And you need to know like systems of inequalities when you have more than two variables and you have two equations, and you have to solve for both, and word problems. And I've already been through it. Once you master all of them, word problems comes easy. Okay, so here's a question, and pause to read it. But you're going to see this question and you're going to think that maybe you need to understand the concept of like graphing these and know how to graph these. And it's a calculator question, so you could graph these, or you could like draw out a graph and graph them. But personally, I don't think that's the right way to do this kind of problem. If you understand the concept of the inequality, you can create the inequality equations, and you don't in like on your paper, and you just have to make sure that they satisfy. So the first one, obviously, is that we need one instructor for every 6 players, right? So C is already out, right? Because we have 13 players and two instructors. That violates the rule. Now we know that each player gets 300, pays 300 for the lessons. So the total amount of money is 300 times the amount of players. And then from that, we subtract, right, 40 times the amount of players minus 1,000 times the number of instructors times the number of instructors, right? So I get 300 times number of players has to be equal to, or actually has to be greater than, because we need to turn a profit. That needs to be greater than $1,000 times the amount of instructors and plus 40 new balls, right? So $40 times the amount of players, right? So if we look at A and if we look at B, right, originally I would recommend going for B because that's the middle option. If you don't know the correct answer. So I always like going for the middle option because the two extremes tend to not be it. But after calculating B, you realize that 3 instructors itself cost 3,000, right? And each player pays 300. So you're already not turning a profit. You're already like bare even, not even calculating the cost of the 40 new balls, right? So if we look at D here, which we get even more players and the same amount of instructors, there we'll actually turn a profit because we are getting 16 players, which means we have $4,800 minus 3,000 and then minus 40 times 16, which I think is 480. And so that is like we have about 1,200 ish more money than all the people paid. So we turn a profit there. So D is the only one that really turns a profit. Okay, tips on learning. Use Khan Academy. That's like the biggest hack, I would say, of all SAT prep is this free online resource to practice the problems. And other SAT tutors and other people might literally say like, oh, I see so many people using Khan Academy, but they never improve. Like that's got to be the biggest scam I've ever heard of in my life. Khan Academy teaches you how to solve them. It gives you practice problems. It gives you videos on how to solve the same exact type of questions. And it gives you hints if you're stuck. And it is completely free. You just have to sign up. I'm not even paid. Like I'm not paid to tell you this. Like Khan Academy doesn't make money. I'm not associated with Khan Academy. Obviously, use it. It's free. It's so helpful, right? So learn the problems and practice the problems there. You can use the SAT question bank to get specific problems that were on the SAT relevant to like the type that you're testing on. So do that. And the key to really learning here is to basically learn the concept first, then just keep practicing problems. Keep encountering as many problems as possible. And that's really how you're going to benefit from this. And also prioritize learning like in sections every single day than learning all of it at once. Like you can't learn all of this in one day, but if you spread it out amongst days, that's when you really like soak this into like your memory instead of it being just like a thing you do for one day and then forget. Thank you guys so much. I hope you learned something. Peace.